Howdy people, I'm going to talk to you about warming up, the most important part of your exercise session. And it is the biggest bane of my life, seeing people that never warm up prior to embarking on the activity to hand. Whether it's going for a run, cycle, swim, hitting the gym, whatever it is, there should always be a period where you prepare the body for the exercise session that's about to come up. Particularly if it's a hard session or a long session, and if we're wanting to enhance adaptations in the body that make us better as endurance athletes. So what should a warm-up consist of? Well, basically, a warm-up is about increasing the heart rate, warming up the muscles, and ensuring that blood is being diverted to the working muscles for the activity to hand. There needs to be an element of switching on the brain, so increasing the cognitive function for the activity, particularly if we're doing any technical lifts in the gym. But also it's about ensuring that we're getting the enzyme activity and getting our mitochondria fired up for aerobic respiration, because it is our aerobic energy system that not only fuels endurance activity, but it allows for greater recovery between intervals, whether that's on the bike, out running, or even between lifts in the gym. So we really want that warm-up to be gradual, so starting from sitting down, conversational pace, gradually working our effort up to an intensity that the session is actually going to be at. So if we're just going for an active recovery session, then the warm-up might just consist of a few mobility exercises and then some very easy paced cycling, running, whatever the activity in the session is going to be to build us to the active recovery level. Very simple. But if we're going to be doing an all-out interval session that relies pushing our second lactate turn point potentially, so working around 85 to 90% of our max heart rate, then clearly our warm-up needs to be a bit longer. It needs to be more significant. So not only are we going to do the mobility drills, we're going to spend some time building the heart rate up gradually. We might have some shorter intervals that gradually builds to the intensity of effort for the session that's coming, but not long that they're leaving a footprint that's going to impact on that session. But also in the gym, we're going to be thinking about, right, if we're doing some maximal lifts today, or certainly some high intensity lifts, or some longer sets with hard repetitions where we're maybe working at sort of 90-95% of our 1 rep max, then clearly the warm-up needs to be progressive first of all before we go and embark on those lifts, to the point where even when we're doing the lifts, it could be the squat, deadlift, bench press, or an Olympic lift like the clean and jerk or the snatch, then we're going to have some build sets leading into those more important high intensity repetitions. Warming up is so critical, particularly when it comes to avoiding the risk of injury, especially in the weights room. But what frustrates me more than anything is when I see endurance athletes, particularly when they're doing a session that's maybe not an interval session, it's just lower intensity, so working around that conversational pace, as many of us are now starting to wake up to, so about 70 to 75% of our maximum heart rate. We're just going straight out and working at that heart rate because it's a little bit easier, we can get away with it. But because we haven't warmed up, what happens is we start drawing on more carbohydrates than we otherwise normally would do had we warmed up, which just impacts on the whole point of the session in the first place, which is to try and become efficient at metabolizing fats for fuel in our mitochondria and improving the whole oxygen transport system and other nutrients in the same process. So it really is important that any warm-up takes us to a point where we're aerobically switched on. Increased breathing rate, increased heart rate over a period of time. And I always recommend 15 minutes as a minimum. Me personally, my warm-up consists of a 10 to 15 minute mobility regime, and then I do a couple of exercises that switch on key muscles depending on the activity to hand. So if I'm getting on the bike, then I might do a couple of glute activation drills, maybe some abductor and adductor drills, only talking a couple of minutes, just to make sure that when I sit on that bike to then start my proper specific warm-up on the bike, which might last for 10 to 15 minutes as well, I know that I'm in the best place, and cognitively I've also had to switch everything on and alert my body ready before I go. No, I'm not saying we've all got to spend 20 to 30 minutes to warm up, But if you're completely avoiding it, then you are missing so much from your performance potential in the adaptations you would get had you done a warm-up prior to that training session. Which is why I reiterate what I said at the start. The warm-up is the single most important part of your exercise session. If you don't do it, you are missing out on so much. Train smart, be awesome. Bye for now.